Yeah.
Greg Coladonato.
Second.
By trustee Gutierrez that we approve the agenda. Any discussion?
One item. 9C has actions for the board to take, but it's under the discussion section of the agenda. Just want to make sure I understand that right. Not formal action. Formal action is not expected on 9C, correct?
No.
Okay.
Not to next one.
Okay. That was it.
Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 2, opportunity for members of the public to address the board concerning items on the closed session agenda. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board? Seeing none, I will adjourn this meeting at 9:32 and we'll go.
9:32 already.
6:32. It's upside down. 6:32. I'm gonna wait for all these.
Do to deserve this?
Cindy, I would like to do the closed session report before we pledge. All right, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Mountain View Eastman School District Board of Trustees back to order at 6:50, not 9:50, 6:50 PM. And note that the board did take action in closed session. We voted unanimously to take action to approve a settlement, and that settlement amount was $21,149.17. All right, so now I think we have some Bub students who are going to help us with the pledge.
Please stand. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. So we're going to do a little bit of meeting agenda before we talk to the Bub students and the Bub principal. So we're going to go on to item 5, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Okay, hold on a second. It's been moved by trustee Lambert, second by trustee Gutierrez, that the board approve the consent agenda. Would any trustee wish to talk about this?
I would like to pull C and F, contracts and warrants. And I just have a comment on O, the district translator. But you can decide how you want to do it.
Yeah, we'll do all of those at the same time. Okay, so any other comments about the consent agenda? Okay, I'm going to move that, I'm going to call for a vote that was moved by trustee Lambert, seconded by trustee Gutierrez. And I'm assuming you're all right with those postponements. So approve the consent agenda minus items C, F, and O. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion, no. Motion passes unanimously 5-0. And as is our norm, we will do these items at the end of our action agenda. So, I'm going to move on to item 6, communications. Is there anyone from the Mountain View Educators Association wishing to address the board tonight? So come on up to, do we have a microphone for?
Oops, sorry. Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Zapata. I am the MVEA newly elected president. We held our general meeting on August 9th. At that time, the articles of our contract that were negotiated were presented to our members. Our members had 7 days to vote, and I am pleased to announce that 99% of our members voted for the ratification. We'd also like to thank the negotiation team, Paula DeRitis, Fern Taylor, Margie Wysocki, Laura Schneider, Angela Lyon, Carmen Geisels, and Joe Rogrove for their hard work and their efforts to make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else you want to say? All right. Is there anyone from our classified union wishing to speak to us tonight? All right. Anyone want to report on any district committees? I think we have no district committees that have met. All right. Superintendent report.
I just want to announce the appointment of assistant principal over at Crittenden. She's actually in the audience right now. Sonia Gomez, if you could, just please stand up right there. Mountain View Westman is pleased to announce Sonia Gomez has been selected as the new assistant principal for Crittenden Middle School and will begin at Crittenden on August 19, 2016. Ms. Gomez has 16 years of experience in education at the middle, high school, and college level. Most recently, she was a middle school, summer school principal, and guidance counselor at JLS Middle School in Palo Alto. She has worked as a counselor at San Jose City College, Evergreen Valley College, Latino College, Prep Academy, and Gunderson High School. She has a master's degree from San Jose State and is fluent in Spanish. Ms. Gomez grew up in Half Moon Bay, and she and her family live in San Jose. A soccer player herself, she has coached high school varsity soccer. And it's also worth noting that Arlene Siam, who is currently the assistant principal at Crittenden Middle School, has been selected as the new Mountain View Education Services Coordinator and will focus on English language learners, along with Ms. Smith, who is the new director. So congratulations, Sonia.
Thank you. And normally we give our new introduced employee an opportunity to talk to us. If you'd like to share a few things with us right now.
Hi, my name is Sonia. I am very happy to be here. I'm very excited. More than anything, I'm just, I've recently walked into Crittenden Middle School and I felt such a good feeling about the people there and the students and the staff. So I'm very excited to join Angie and this, team working together for our vision and mission for our school. So definitely thank you guys for your time, and I'm excited to have a really wonderful year this year. So thank you.
And we see you're partnered there with your new principal too. So that's nice to see that teamwork. And is there someone with you here tonight too? Yeah,
No,
just by yourself, just the principal. All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to item 7, community comments. And I'll mention, as kind of a primer for the start of the year, once we finish an agenda item that was of interest to you, if you would like to go home after that, that is absolutely fine. So, you just because you're sitting in a chair right now doesn't mean you have to sit for the whole meeting. So you decide when you want to leave. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, community comments. This is the time reserved for community members to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any people wishing to address the board? Okay, and did you fill out a comment card?
No, where do I find those?
Okay, so I think on the back, and you could fill it out afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. It's my first time here. My name is Cherie Valkoviak. I'm a mother of 2 kids at Stevenson Elementary, but I'm not here representing myself. I'm representing a community group called Safe Mountain View, and we advocate for road designs that are safe enough for kids. And our mission is a network of bikeways and walkways that connect our neighborhoods to our schools and parks and downtown shops and workplaces so that people can get around without a car. And I just wanted to tell you 2 things. First of all, we're really excited about something called protected bikeways that separate our kids on bikes from cars with some sort of physical separation. It could be like a raised sidewalk or some posts or curbs or something. That's kind of our focus right now. But we also encourage people to bike. And so I have an announcement for you tonight. We're leading our annual summer family bike ride and picnic. And I'm going to leave flyers in the back. I just wanted to let you know that we're leading this and that people from the school district are welcome to come. It'll be on August 27th at 10 o'clock. We'll start at Bub Park. and we'll do just a short 3.5-mile tour and end at Bub Park. And there will be a bike rodeo from Safe Moves. There will be mechanics before the ride to do tune-ups for your bike, and there'll even be electric bikes for people to try out. And we'll have free Baskin Robbins ice cream and giveaways for like bike gear. So you're welcome to come.
Thank you very much. All right. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to item 8, school showcase.
So just so you know, every month we will have schools talking about the good work that they are doing on a day-to-day basis. They also, each school has been selected to lead the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of each meeting. So I just want you to know that every month you will get to hear from a different school showcasing the good work that they're doing. And this month, I am glad to present Bub Elementary.
Bub School. Woohoo. Good evening. So I'm Cindy Nguyen. I'm the principal of Bub School. I brought some friends with me. I will introduce them later, and some grown-up friends, and I'll introduce them in a minute too. There are a lot of cool things going on at Bub Elementary. For example, we're doing, we hired a full-time science teacher for grades K through 3, so we can reduce class size and provide like a dedicated intervention enrichment time for kids. This year, we're really focusing on growth and academic mindset. So we're doing a lot of teacher action research. And so just yesterday, our teachers all wrote an inquiry for the trimester of what they're going to do to improve student mindset. But today we want to highlight our home visit program. So I brought Eb Lopez, our school and community engagement facilitator, and Mr. David Franklin, a classroom teacher, and Miss Laurel Shepard, and they're going to help me talk through our home visits. So the home visit team. Okay, Mr. Franklin.
So at Bub School, we started about 3 or 4 years ago with this idea that we wanted to help students avoid something called the summer slide. We wanted to make sure that all their work in the previous year was maintained over the summer. So we had invited parents to come in to school before the end of summer, like the last week of school. And we taught them strategies to use over the summer that we wanted them to use with their kids. And then Eb and I, or actually that first couple of years, we went and did home visits to check in on the kids to make sure that they were doing the work or ask if they had any questions or if they needed any help. And then the next year we did it over winter break. And then we followed up and kept doing it over summer, winter. And then it kind of exploded into a big home visit, homeschool connection extravaganza, where we made really meaningful connections with homes and families and students. And we got a lot of good data results back from it where kids were doing their job and working really hard.
So a couple of years ago when we first got started, for me specifically, going on the home visits was really about parent engagement. I was new to the campus, so I knew I needed to go out there, meet our families, meet our community, and start building relationships and introduce myself to everyone at Bub. So moving into our second year, we wanted to be a little bit more strategic about our visits and add an academic component. So we came up with this idea. We took each student's success plan, the same success plan that was discussed with their parents at the parent-teacher conference, and we put all of those teacher recommendations on a fun, kind of easy to read chart for them. Then what we did is we went door to door to about 20 kids' homes. We sat down with mom and dad, and we kind of went through the different things that their teacher thought they should be doing at home, extra work, some of it reading, some of it math. Then for the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'd go around every 2 weeks or so, and we'd check on their progress. Mom and dad knew to put a little sticker on their chart anytime they completed one of the assignments on their student success plan. At the end of the road, we had a really fun lunch that was with Principal Cindy, myself, Mr. Franklin, and our school secretary. And it was really cool to see whenever we'd come around, the kids would know that we were at the door. They'd go run and find their chart, whether it was on the fridge or in their bedroom. They're really excited to show us their progress. One of the kids who really blew through that chart and finished in record time was Fernando. He's here in the audience, someone we really want to highlight tonight. We're fortunate to have his teacher from last school year here with us, and Mrs. Shepard's going to talk a little bit more about Fernando in the classroom.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mrs. Shepard, and I was Fernando's teacher last year in 3rd grade. Fernando, give away. Okay, maybe not. Oh, there he goes. I knew it would happen. Fernando is a very hardworking student, and he came to us with a very supportive family. His mother, Estella, is here today and tonight also. It was our goal for Fernando to help him continue to make progress throughout the year, as it is for every student in my classroom. But Fernando really blew us all away by the end of the school year. Taking the SBAC at the end of the year, he exceeded the standard in math, and he met the standard in ELA, both showing huge gains and huge growth from where he was at the beginning of the school year. Now, I did not do this myself. It was a team effort, of course, with Ebb and Mr. Franklin visiting his home, and particularly with Ebb being able to translate between myself and Estella. There were many times where it was helpful when I needed to communicate to her, and Ebb would help me call or send an email, or if she needed to talk to us and she wanted to have a special conference, she would reach out to Mr. Ebb, and Ebb would coordinate all 3 of us to sit down together. And I believe that it was that collaboration between the 3 of us adults and Fernando, knowing that all of us cared so much about him, that helped to continue to help him flourish and grow as a student. One of the biggest growths and one of the things I'm most proud of for Fernando is for his ability to latch on to the growth mindset and to really grow in his confidence and his ability to take feedback and change his work style.
So this summer, we continued the work. We found some friends that could benefit from some extra work over the summer. And the last week of school, or the last week of summer school, we sent them home with a chart that looks similar to the one on the right. And we set some goals, like do some ST Math this many minutes, or RAS Kids this many minutes. And we chose trackable things because over the summer, Mr. Ebb and Mr. Franklin went to their houses. Number 1, to check if they had the technology working to access these things. And then second, to check in on their progress. And I invited some of my friends who completed their work. So we have Camilla over there. Camilla, give a wave. Yay. And then we have Fernando, who we met. And we have Angelina. So those 3 friends completed their work over the summer. There were quite a few kids. These are just the ones we invited to come tonight. So that is just our home visit program at BUB. It's been really cool to see a lot of families empowered and engaged in school and supporting their kids.
And you said you were going to introduce a few of these other students to us.
Oh, yeah. So we also have some other students. We have Sam Franklin, Mr. Franklin's son, a BUB Cub. And we have Etta and Audrey Jackson. They are 2 of mine. So they are also BUB Cubs too.
Here we go. Okay, so are you opening it up to questions right now and comments?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So normally in a meeting like this, the trustees have a few minutes to make comments or ask questions. And we also ask members of the public if they want to say anything. And I'll note that we've got about 10 more minutes, so we have a fair amount of time. So I'm going to ask first if there's any members of the public that wish to address the board regarding this presentation. All right, so I'm going to ask the trustees if you have any comments. Trustee Nelson?
Actually, I had one comment and one question related. I'm really glad to see or hear you're doing this thing about making sure that for our computer thing, the technology access, that you're actually checking out with feet on the ground out at the where the kids are. So I know that's sort of one of the things I wasn't clear from the technology plan 2014-17 about how much of it was going to be actually checking on that was working. And I'm really, really glad to hear that, because at one time, not that many years ago, it was like half the Latino families or economically disadvantaged families in the valley didn't have family access to that kind of stuff. And so if you're going to put it in and we're going to depend on our kids using it, it's really good that we're both supplying it for the Comcast thing and we're checking that it's working, and we're, making sure you guys have one of these things working at home or however it is, whatever it is. So I'm really glad to see that. Then you can use stuff like ST Math, and you can see what progress they're making, and all Khan Academy, if they get into that kind of stuff, it's like cool. So
Thank you.
Is there anything, what kind of interventions did you have to find to do, like getting Comcast thing? I mean, you're saying like getting,
So, yeah, I believe we received a grant from Google
uh,
for a Chromebook for our students, and then about 3 months of free low-cost internet. So we identified students on campus that did not have technology at home. They were invited to a few of our tech events at different schools in our district. And then, like we mentioned, Mr. Franklin and I, we were actually hands and knees at some houses helping them connect the Wi-Fi.
okay.
So we made, flashlights, trying to find the cable. So we made sure that we followed up with those families that received their Chromebook and the internet service.
Yeah, after 10 years of doing that on your own, you sort of real. Is
So
there?
trustee Nelson,
Oh,
I'd like
we're
to
out of
call on
time.
another trustee at this
Okay,
point.
2 minutes, right?
Trustee Coladonado.
Ms. Nguyen, I wanted to just get your thoughts on what it was like coming to speak to the board and bringing everyone here tonight. Was it a positive experience?
A very positive experience. It's great to celebrate great work that kids are doing and adults at campus are doing. So yes, thanks for having us here.
Thank you very much for coming. I've thought
And
for a long
parents
time.
too. We had
Oh,
parents come too. So yay.
Yes. I've thought for a long time it'd be nice to have kids come and more people come, and I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now it's my turn. I want to say also, kind of following up on trustee Coladonado. So one, I think it's great that you brought some of your actual students to the meeting. And in particular, it's nice to meet these students who did exceptionally well during the summer program. And you gave us details about how you specifically helped those students and, including the parents on this. So totally a team effort. So it's nice to hear that. And I have to say right now that Mr. Franklin was my son's second grade teacher, and I know how good he is.
Mr. Franklin was also this lady's teacher.
There.
So thank you for your presentation.
Any plans for expansion in terms of the summer session targeting students? Or are you limited by resources in terms of how much capacity you're able to touch?
I think in the past we tried to make really elaborate plans. I think one summer we had really elaborate plans with kids and families, and then it was more difficult to keep track of. I think this summer we kind of found a good spot of a balance so kids can still have their summer. We can make sure that they are maintaining their skills and that we're connecting with families in a positive way. So I think we kind of hit a good spot this summer.
Well,
You
thank
would
you for
do
your
this.
initiative. And thank you for thinking about this and following through with a plan. Because even if you affect 1 to 5 to 10 students or 20, it's huge. So thank you.
Yeah, so are you talking with other principals about sharing this model?
Yeah, I've shared with some colleagues. I think Ebbs talked to his facilitator team too about kind of the things we're doing.
I had one thing that
Yes,
you
go
just
ahead.
reminded. You mentioned having a dedicated science teacher. How many schools have that, and how did you get that done?
This is
Oh, that's a you thing? Okay.
Yeah, this is part of our RTI pilot. So we have two programs running parallel.
Okay.
Bub has a science teacher, whereas the other 4 schools actually have a traditional intervention teacher, and we're going to look at the results to see which one has an impact.
Okay.
If or if both of them do, and then next year we scale it up to all of the elementary schools, and so a choice will be made at that point about which way to go.
Great, thanks.
Any other comments by the board? Thank you very much. Thank you, students. Thank you, parents and teachers.
I do want to say just real quick, thank you to the staff, as well as the students and the parents. It's always tough to go first. And I really appreciate y'all setting a very high bar. And just, again, thank you for all the work that you do day in, day out.
Thank you.
And you're going to wait a couple seconds and let these people leave.
I had a comment about, I knew something was coming about Bub when I read the governance calendar thing that you got going. So if anybody wants to know when a school's coming up, it's in parentheses along the top of this governance calendar, which is, I think, a link now on the Board of Trustees front page or whatever.
Correct. It is.
Yeah.
It is up there now.
So now we know.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So are we ready for the next item, even though we're 5 minutes early? All right, so move on to item 9, review and discussion. Item A, summer school programming 2016.
So I'm happy to be here tonight we're going to be presenting some information about all the summer programs we had over both in our district and out of district. And I'm wanting to introduce Angela Lyon, who's our new educational services coordinator in charge of response to intervention. And she actually will be overseeing summer school. So she's going to present tonight and I'm going to help support since she transitioned through halfway through.
Good evening. So to start, let's talk about why we have our summer school programs in the first place. So primarily, the purpose of our summer school programs for our students is to prevent that summer learning loss that can take place when students have a period of time off. In addition to that, we want to fill in some gaps with intervention, primarily for language arts and math, provide school readiness for our incoming kinder students, provide motivation and inspiration to encourage our students to own their learning and to aspire to secondary colleges and education. And then finally, we want to support our teachers in learning new strategies and skills. So our district summer school program was held at Therakoff, and its primary purpose was to prevent summer learning loss and fill in gaps with a focus on literacy and math. And a highlight of this program was that teachers who participated also benefited through professional development that was held daily after school dismissal. So the students left at lunchtime and teachers stayed, so they had an opportunity for professional development on a daily basis. Our Stretch to Kindergarten program was for our incoming kinders with a focus on low-income families so that these children could have a preschool experience and school readiness practice prior to entering our kindergartens. A highlight of this program included a parent education component on Wednesday mornings, and 30 of our high school students engaged in this site field experience through the Foothold Child Development class, and they received college credit for that. Our A-Learn program provided math intervention programs for our incoming 6th and 7th grade students so that they could successfully complete either 6th grade math or Math 7.0 for the 7th graders. Elevate, through the Silicon Valley Education Foundation, focused on math intervention, but for our incoming 8th graders so that they could focus on Algebra 1 or Math 8.0. And they really focused on having a college mindset. And they took a field trip to the colleges to see what a college campus would look like and feel like. Our extended school year program was for our students with special education needs and their services that are related to their IEPs that went through the regular year. So these students needed to attain their services in order to maintain their level of self-sufficiency. And you can see that that included speech and language services, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. Our Achievement for Language Learners, or the ALL program, was a program that provided support to our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle schoolers who are considered long-term English learners with a focus on literacy and language arts. They also provided them with field trips and hands-on experiences to promote and inspire school success for them. A highlight of this was that it also included a parent workshop in the evenings that focused on STEM activities, guest speakers, and it also helped parents understand the enrollment support process at Foothill College. Our Castro Summer Intervention Program was to provide an opportunity for students of Castro School to build background knowledge and avoid that summer learning loss. And they contracted through a program called Olympico Learning. And this program partnered with local businesses and organizations to provide hands-on learning experiences such as Intel, Apple, Marine Institute of Science. So the kids had a variety of experiences. Our YMCA summer learning classes provided a 6-week summer program for our incoming first and second graders at Castro and Therakoff Elementary Schools. And this program had a morning component, which was an academic program that was provided by the YMCA with credentialed teachers. And then the afternoon session consisted of enrichment activities with field trips scheduled on Thursdays. Our California English Language Development Test, or the CELT as we know it by, we provide the option for incoming TKs, kinders, and first grade families, either who have already enrolled or are new to our district, to participate in the CELT testing prior to the start of school. So I'm happy to report that we had 13 CELT testers who served 390 students throughout the month of July. So that's great because now these kids are already tested, and that's that many less kids that we have to test and pull them out of class. Our Seamless Summer Program, it's a school nutrition program provided by our district, and we provide free meals to the children of Mountain View. The locations were all over the city of Mountain View, and it's amazing. They served over 36,000 meals this summer, which was over 1,000 more meals than they served last summer. I thought that was phenomenal. Valdez Math Institute was held at Stanford University, and this was an intensive math program for our incoming 6th through 8th grade students. They focused on trying to cover an entire year worth of math content in 7 weeks. So you can imagine for the kids, it was pretty intense. 42 students participated, and they had an average of 1 to 2 hours of homework per night in addition to a full day of math instruction. And the purpose of this was really to get kids to grade level content standards so that they could be ready for Algebra 1. The Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, or STEM, was to expose middle school students to a college environment and give them experience in STEM activities. Oh, and what I want to highlight is that they partnered with the Foothill Engagement Institute on this, and with a total of 28 students from Crittenden and Graham who participated. Empower was empowering girls through code. This program was tuition free, and it offered girls from underrepresented backgrounds opportunities to participate in engineering and science technologies. The girls were allowed to create websites, and then they presented their websites at Google. And one of the nice things about this program is they partnered with local women from organizations here in our community that are in the technology industry. So providing role models for them to inspire and support them to become women in the technology industry. Peninsula Bridge is a program that provided our middle school students both academic skills and enrichment skills, really trying to engage students by having a very high interest program that focused on robotics and the arts, nutrition, lots of electives so the kids could get excited and have some choice in their learning. And that was 5 days a week from 9 to 3. The transportation was provided by Peninsula Bridge, which was nice because there were several locations throughout Mountain View that where Peninsula Bridge was held, and we had a total of 74 students who participated. The interesting thing too I wanted to highlight about Peninsula Bridge is they focused on students from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds, but who are also performing proficient and advanced. So it's kind of a neat little niche. So many programs we offered throughout the district over the summer this year. In general, this is how the enrollment process worked. We generated a list of potential students at the district level for each program based on that program criteria. And then the principals would receive that list, and we would speak with our staffs and our teachers and review the list, and we would add or delete kids based on information we knew about that family. Were they going to be available? Could they participate? Was this a good match for this student? Did they need language arts? Did they need math? Which was the best bang for the buck for the student? Information nights were held for each individual program, and then students were sent invitations and enrollment forms by mail. And then they were asked to complete those back at the school sites and return them to us. And I have to give a shout out to the community facilitators because they did a tremendous job of recruitment, communication, follow through, sitting down, helping people fill out the enrollment forms. So that role was fantastic to have somebody following up consistently with families. And then the students were enrolled on a first come, first served basis. And as soon as we returned their forms, they were notified that they were on the list or they were, in some cases, on a wait list. The successes for all of these programs in general included really the highlights that we were able to expand both the number of programs and the enrollment capacity of some of the programs. So for example, extended school years, so students with IEPs, we added 1 class. Our district program added 3 classes, and Elevate and A-Learn also added an additional class each. And we went from serving 450 from last summer in 2015 to 866 students this summer. So we've almost doubled. Some of the challenges we faced, including hiring and retaining staff. So we had difficulty getting teachers, tired teachers who wanted their summer breaks to commit to working throughout their summer and keeping them. So that was a bit of a challenge. We had some difficulty enrolling students. One of the things we noticed this year was that some students would enroll and then they would drop out for a variety of reasons. They had a trip planned or something came up in their family. So then our facilitators would go back out and we have to recruit and try and get all of those classes filled. Some of our schedules didn't align this year. For example, district programming and ESY, we want to make sure we align that for next year. They started a little bit off. So we want to make sure those are more efficient and aligned for next year. And then facilities and transportation. So with the thought that Montaloma and Castro would be under construction this past summer, we moved the programming here, which then led to us needing to provide transportation for students who weren't in this area. And our transportation department, did the best they could. They're amazing, but they weren't quite able to fill the capacity that we needed. So then the district needed to contract out to have additional buses to support students to be able to come. And then finally, some of the external programs to support language arts and math are less available for elementary students. As you heard, there were a lot of programs available to us that were middle school focus. So gaining program access for our elementary students will be is something that we've noticed as a challenge for this year, and we hope to seek that out again for the following year. So in summary, considerations for next summer, 2017, we want to monitor the academic achievement data for students who attended our summer programs. We're going to collaborate with partners and to prepare for our 2017 summer school programs beginning as soon as possible. We're shooting for no later than December. We'd like to coordinate schedules among our programs, as I mentioned, a little more effectively. We're going to continue to hire and promote summer learning for staff and teachers in early 2017, and then work collaboratively with the challenge team and the Summer Learning Loss Committee. And that is it.
Thank you. So
You are welcome.
I'm going to model what I did last time and first ask if there's any members of the public wishing to address the board on this item. Okay, seeing none, I will go to the trustees, and I started down there with Trustee Nelson first, so I'm going to skip over Trustee Coladonado. We've got 15 minutes here, so let's try to keep our comments to 2 minutes or so.
All right. First, welcome to your new role.
Thank you.
Ms. Lyon. You may not know this, I've been a strong proponent of trying to do more in the summer and help, like the student we heard from tonight that made a lot of progress in the summer. I believe that is an opportunity. So I'm really happy to see that the numbers went from 400 to 800 something.
Great.
It's listed under things for next summer, but would it be possible to see how some of our students that were selected based on being behind do in the first interim assessments that are just a few months away?
Yes. So what we do is we progress monitor all of our students, but what we do is we filter for each of our summer school programs, and we can actually look at their assessment data by trimester, by their state assessments, how they did on CELT. We can see them as a full picture, so we can kind of monitor how they're doing.
I would love to see something that shows students that before and afters for the students that got the treatment and the students that didn't do summer school, to try to figure out how effective the different programs were. I don't think the board's ever seen anything like that. I'd be interested in seeing it to maybe figure out which programs we should, do more to enlarge or whatever, like the ones that really help. Valdez, is it Valdez? It's Valdez. Pronounced Valdez.
Yes.
Did they do a test at the end of their program?
They do have pre and post data, but we have not seen that yet.
Oh, but they do eventually send it to you.
They will share it, and then we can actually look at those students and see how they're doing. Yes.
And I'd like to see that too. Now, that's not a state, that's probably not a Common Core CASP type of test, but it's
No.
their own.
It's their own.
test.
Their
But even that
program
would be helpful.
assessment.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and once again, trustee Coladonado and I were on a wavelength here. I had the same thoughts and the same questions, so you addressed them, so I'm going to
So
move
thank
over
you.
to trustee
Thank you.
Lambert.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So I have just two questions. They're simple questions. One, will we have the same programs available next year, or is there a selection process of which ones we keep, which ones we continue? That's the first question.
So, most likely, yes. We like to go through, we'll meet with all of our partners. So schedule meetings, we meet with ALERN, we meet with Elevate, we meet with all the programs to discuss the program, how they went. They give us their data, we look at our data. So most likely, yes, these are programs, the majority of the programs you see are programs that we've had consistently over time and we're now trying to add as well.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question concerns Impoder or Impoder. For that program, how fairly new is that? Because I don't recall seeing that lately, to be honest with you.
Yep.
So I'm intrigued about that because that seems like a good avenue to tap into.
It's very new. We had it's actually run in started by a graduate of the Mountain View Los Altos High School District, and actually Brigida Saroff put us in touch with her. And so we do a lot of work with her. We hold information nights. We help her with garnering parents to have information nights, and then parents can choose to sign up for that program over at the high school district. It's new, it was our first year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trustee Nelson?
Yeah. I want to use my 3-minute timer, Ellen. I'm encouraged as these programs seem to get something that the previous years didn't, and there doesn't seem to be a smushing together of goals of things like, well, is this supposed to be teacher training, or is this supposed to be student learning catch up, or is this supposed? So I was glad to see the thing about the professional development was set. Here's a time when another teacher comes in and we work on the professional development part. And I assume there's probably some observation stuff done during the classroom teaching. So I don't feel that it's like, oh, is this focused on the students or on the teachers? A lot of these programs, it's clear it's focused on the student. So focus, focus, focus. And the focus is the target students. And I'm glad I'm hearing that. I am a little bit let down that success is only explained as number of programs and enrollment. And the other thing about the treatment, non-treatment issue of, is this making a statistically significant difference in the achievement? Because things like the RAND study on summer programs across the United States, at least the first version of the study says, there seems to be no statistically significant difference in long-term academic achievement except in math or programs like that, the long number of days and the long number of hours. That the number of hours you're getting instruction on and working on things makes a difference. So I'm a little worried that some of these are, essentially 15 half days of learning doesn't seem to be sufficient when you're a year behind in math. It's not going to make much difference on one of these programs. Something like, can we double the A-Learn number of days? How much would that cost, or how could it be done?
A-Learn runs its own program, so we could inquire about
Yeah.
doubling the hours, but
Right.
they have their set program that's their research-based program. And then, to be honest, the majority of these programs are on preventing summer learning loss, not as much filling in the gaps. Where we fill in the gaps is really when we have the kids in the school year.
Okay, but if a kid is a year behind,
Absolutely.
then it's good that they don't get a year and a quarter behind. but
Absolutely.
It'd be nice if they got to be only 3/4 of a year behind. So I had a hard time understanding the A-Learn spreadsheet that I got from you guys. And the Valdez, it sort of made sense, but the Valdez one really, some of the correlations there didn't make sense when I was looking at it. So I'll probably be working with the Valdez, one of the Valdez directors. And Elevate Math sort of had the same problem. It's pretty short. All for-
Like sand through the hourglass.
I went through? Okay, good. I'll wait, since we have a whole bunch of time.
Or we could move ahead.
Yeah.
Are there any other trustees wishing to make a comment?
I just have a quick one.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, this is not a one-stop solution process, right? It's all a work in progress. I understand Trustee Nelson's perspective. I'm there with you. But I like the fact that at least we have exposure to different programs that touches different types of subject matter, where we see that there's a need for middle school students to be able to make that transition to the 7th to the 8th grade or to our high school district, and to be exposed to different challenges during a short period of time. Sometimes that, more often than not, is a huge challenge to deal with because you don't have that much of a support system there except for who you have around you. And you can't count on, well, if I don't do it now, I'll do it later on in October. No, you've got 4 weeks, that's it. So in that respect, I appreciate the efforts of the programs and the intents that they have to try and touch as many students as they can. And I want to thank you again for that, because I think that's just a stepping stone to where we want to get to in the future. And these help as a model to maybe possibly look at, to implement sooner or later within the district itself as we look at the strategic plan and the question of pedagogy. What works, what doesn't work. And I'm sorry for not addressing my fellow board members. I got excited. I'll try and do better.
That's okay. We're sort of, it's a
Okay.
three-way call.
I want to
Anybody
follow
else?
up on something
Yes,
Trustee
go ahead,
Gutierrez.
Trustee
Oh, we're going
Coladonado.
back this way? I'll be glad to finish up. What does the chair say?
I called on Trustee Coladonado.
Right.
I'd like to follow up on what Trustee Gutierrez said. He said, when he said something about these are stepping stones towards our aspirations for the future. I like the ALL program, but I hope that we run out of students that qualify.
We do too.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, Trustee Nelson.
Yeah, the YMCA program looks real interesting, 24 full days. But this is one of the kinds of things is that the treatment, non-treatment things show that there's really getting some academics. We're getting some academics of it. However it is you want to quantify it. And there's other ones like the Foothills STEAM in powder. It's fine to have some just like exposure, spark, inspiration kinds of stuff, but particularly when we're doing it with partners like the Foothill College group that does stuff. So I'm not going to say everything have to show academic improvement, but I think if we're using a program that we're saying this is really doing academic improvement, we really have to use our data. That's the thing that the district quality report said. We're really not a very data intensive organization. And this is one of the places where some outside research says these are nice programs, they keep kids out of problems, but if they're not showing a statistically significant difference in getting kids prepared to go to high school. And so I think it's good we have a bunch of programs. I think of like, this is almost our 100 points of light, right? But one question, enrollment. How does the first come, first serve enrollment thing specifically help disadvantaged students? Does it put them at a...
It actually doesn't, because all of our programs target our socially economically disadvantaged students. And all of our programs, with the exception of Peninsula Bridge, which actually does mostly an internal enrollment process, all of our students are either English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged, or below standard.
Okay, so they're all, they're a large chunk of the target students for LCAP, the local control funding formula.
Almost all of them are,
Correct.
yes.
I also want to add that as part of Challenge Mountain View, they reached out to all 3 school districts with the goal of increasing the number of students that were enrolled. And our SCAFs, whose primary job is to focus on community engagements, spend a considerable amount of time making sure that we get kids into the program. And they did tremendous work, so much work that our numbers increased drastically compared to the other 2 school districts. In fact, I want to say that the other 2 actually dropped or stayed flat, whereas ours continued to go up. And if you'll look, a good example of this is A-Learn doubled in its size from last year to this year. And a large part of that is, both the work of Kathy, but also the work of the SCAPs and Phyllis last year to make sure that we got people engaged and that they knew about these programs.
I think the challenge team sort of challenge to do that and tie in the community also was, it was good for an incentive coming from a different direction. Because they haven't done that before, have they? Oh, you've gone to
Yes.
this. Oh, they have? Well, anyway, this was much more successful, so maybe it was you guys.
So Dr. Rudolph, you used a word I've never heard before, and I was struggling to figure out what it was. It was an acronym. So SCEFs?
SCAPs.
School community engagement facilitators.
Okay.
Sorry. Internally, we say that, and it's probably not we probably need a better acronym, but that's just the one I always hear. So it just sticks in there.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much. We will move on. Okay, we're going to move on to item B, Measure G, Bond Program Summer 2016 Update.
Good evening. So I'm here tonight to be able to give you an update on the work we were able to complete this summer, as well as provide an update on the continued progress of the Measure G bond program. Oop, wrong presentation. That looks right. Thank you. So we'll be going over the work we were able to complete. I'll give you an update on the ongoing construction that we have at our 2 middle schools. We'll review the projects that are bidding. In fact, one just bid today, and the projects we have in design. And then there's a couple of brief program developments to tell you about. So in terms of the work that was actually completed over the summer, and in many cases started at the beginning of the summer break, at Crittenton, we replaced the flooring and we repainted the multi-use room. We also replaced the kitchen freezer and cooler boxes in the central kitchen, and that was due to a new requirement by the Santa Clara County Health Department. We were able to pave the kitchen service yard to be able to return the Crittenton kitchen to its status as the central kitchen for the district. And then we remodeled the second floor of Building 200, which, if you're not familiar with the campus, is the 2-story curved building. What we did is we took some classrooms, converted them into specialized resource rooms, and also created a 5-office suite for counseling and meeting purposes. We also added a restroom on the second floor as well. Over at Graham Middle School, we finished commissioning the brand new Innovation Center, and by commissioning, I mean we went in and, working with maintenance and operations, were able to make sure that everything from the data systems to the ventilation systems, all of the user operational parts of the building were functional, and we were going to be able to meet the academic goals that the building was created for. And then at Huff Elementary, we took advantage of the summer to go in and install about 200 feet of sewer pipe to be able to remedy a situation that had developed over time The original installation did not provide the fall that was needed to provide adequate drainage, and we were able to go in this summer and remedy that. So I've got a photo here. This is the brand new Innovation Center at Graham. It seemed, I was walking through it today, and the people I did talk to were very excited about being in there. You can definitely tell how the open areas are being used for small group study, both small and large. The AV systems are in to be able to make those functional spaces in addition to the dedicated classrooms. We also have 3 buildings that are currently under construction. They started in January and they'll be complete right after the new year dawns in 2017. That is at Crittenton, it's a new library and classroom building, similar, not a duplicate of the Graham Innovation Center, but similar in style. They have a new auditorium that's also in construction. And then we're doing a series of complementary landscaping and site work improvements, as well as utility upgrades. At Graham Middle School, we have the new auditorium that's under construction right there on Castro Street. I've got a couple of photos here to be able to bring you an update. That is the new Graham Auditorium. What you see is the exterior exoskeleton, you might say. That's the exterior framing going up for them to be able to close in the building. We want to be able to have the building weather tight before inclement weather hits us during the winter. That is the new Crittenton Library and Classroom building. So they are finishing the steel, the welding off of the connections, and the installation of the metal decking. And that's the new Crittenton Auditorium. The Crittenton and Graham auditoriums that are proceeding at about the same pace. The same contractors working on both, but they have different superintendents and teams, so they're trying to compete with one another and who can get finished first. We had a couple of projects that we're bidding this summer. One of the consent items involved rejecting bids for the Phase 1 work at Castro Mistral. I'm happy to report that we rebid the project and we received bids this afternoon. The reason we rejected the bids originally were they were $2 million over budget. The bids came in today $300,000 under budget. Wow. So the strategy behind rebidding it paid off, at least with respect to maintaining budgets. I know it was a real challenge for the Castro Mistral community who had to unpack their classrooms and repopulate them in their current classroom setup as opposed to being able to move to their temporary village. So it was a hardship on them. We also have a preschool play yard that we need to build out. Because of the market conditions, we were not able to get site work contractors to bid directly to us for that small amount of work. So we're going to make it part of the Castro Mistral temporary campus. So we've covered the projects that are in construction, the ones that are bidding, and finally, we have a number of projects that are in design right now. At Bub Huff and Landals, the project includes relocation of the portables onto the on a temporary basis onto the asphalt playground, a portion of the asphalt playground, the construction of a brand new multi-use room, classroom modernization, administration building modernization, and the conversion of the old round multi-purpose room into a combination library special education space. The first of those projects will be in construction next summer. At Castro Mistral, as I mentioned, we are at DSA with the plans for the new Castro campus. We also have modernization of the Mistral campus in design, as well as the new Mistral Kinder complex, which includes new classrooms, a new play structure, and the new drop-off zone in front of the school. And then, of course, the new Kinder wing will replace the current multi-use room, which can go away once the brand new 5,800 square foot multi-use room is open as part of the new Castro campus. At Montaloma, we'll be there in the summer of 2017. We're going to be expanding the multi-use room. That requires demolition of a couple of small buildings. So we're going to be adding portables at the back of the campus to house the after-school programs. It also includes classroom modernization, modernization of the administration building, and site utility upgrades, namely the extension of the underground fire service and new fire hydrants. At Stevenson Elementary, as you'll hear in a little bit, we have been continuing with the design of the new campus. And during the summer, that also included a meeting with the Stevenson faculty and parent community to get their input on the proposed design. At Therakoff, we've been continuing with the design that includes the expansion of the multi-use room and the expansion of a classroom to make it conform with our district standards for kinder classrooms. We've also been looking at a remodel of the administration building and a classroom modernization at Therakoff as well. We have begun conceptual plans for the new Slater campus as directed. And part of the new Slater campus involves relocating the preschool program currently there. And as you'll hear in a few minutes, that preschool program will be coming over to this location and integrating with the Therakoff Stevenson district office complex. And then part of that complex, as I mentioned, is a new building for the district office. And you'll be seeing the details of that in just a couple minutes. In terms of program developments, the Measure G Bond Program Office was generously hosted by Therakoff for the first few months. And we've now been able to move over to Graham, again, by the generosity of the campus. What that does is that enables us to coordinate closely with maintenance and operations because they have an integral role in the ultimate support for all of the facilities that we're working with. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for any comments or questions that you might have.
Thank you. And I'll ask members of the public if there's any member of the public wishing to address the board on this item. I'll also mention this is a good time for me to say, again, this first meeting of the year, the board gets the agenda the Friday before, and we are encouraged to submit written questions to Superintendent Rudolph, who then fans them out for answers from the people who are responsible for those questions. So when people watch this or sit in the audience and think, oh, the trustees don't have any questions, many of us have already asked detailed questions in our questions that we were asked to submit ahead of time. Having said that, if any trustee would like to make a comment or ask a question, we've got about 10 more minutes. So trustees, if you'd like to ask questions.
Sure.
Trustee Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam President Wheeler. So I have two simple questions. One concerns the placement of the portables at Huff. Is that going to be still in the same spot, or has there been some sort of conversation about possibly moving them to a different area within the campus? That's the first question.
So the first question, the portables continue to be placed on a portion of the blacktop. We did do a study of putting them on the grass. Mm-hmm. And the cost to be able to bring utilities over to that was significant enough that it would have forced a compromise in something we couldn't do in the classrooms. We really do mean that for this to be a temporary solution. And now that school is back in session and we have the opportunity to meet with the administration and the staff again, we will work through their concerns as well as addressing the parent concerns that were raised.
Okay, And then my second and final question. I'm not sure how you all are, if you all are familiar with Graham lately, but when I dropped off my daughter at Graham. It's her first year there. She's totally excited. I'm happy for her, right? But the construction is right there. You can't miss it. So I went to the backside, and there were 3 teachers there that would not allow me to drive through the back entryway of the school for various reasons. But my concern was to have the teachers there, right? So I expressed a request or my concern with them and also with the superintendent, and asked if we could possibly have maybe the police department help us place a motorcycle police officer there for the first couple of weeks instead of our teachers, right? And I don't know if that's the norm or not, but if you're able to help out with that issue one way or another, I would really appreciate that. I know our teachers do a lot of work, but to also have to do that, wow, that's going above and beyond. So.
Okay, I'll note that comment. In fact, starting on Monday, we have a 5-day window to be able to cut in the new driveway that serves the auditorium. And so originally the plan called for the students to be able to be forced to walk across Castro and divert around. Through discussions with the city of Mountain View and the contractor, we were able to come up with a bypass, a fenced bypass that will actually allow the students to continue walking down that west side of Castro without forcing them to cross over to the east side.
Okay,
And
just I'm so sorry. Just bear in mind, this is a reference to Graham.
yeah,
Just so you know, that was my concern. So I appreciate you explaining to me about Castro, though.
no,
Castro
this is a
Street
grant.
is the front.
This
Oh,
is a
that's
grant.
right. That's
yeah.
my
I
mistake.
could give you some hints.
My wife
as
just
a
walked in and threw me
long-term-
off. She's
Yes,
right
it
there.
did. I saw that.
I'm so sorry.
As a long-term grandparent, I can give you some hints.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm
Thank you.
sorry. I apologize.
So trustee Lambert?
No questions. Thank you.
So that brought up for me, trustee Gutierrez's question brought up for me. I know there's been a lot of education that's gone on. So speaking of construction, wow, is there a lot of construction on the corner of Castro and El Camino with multiple huge trucks and closed lanes and construction workers with stop and slow signs. So I know that the school has been doing a lot of pre-planning on how to educate students and their families about safe ways to negotiate that part of Castro.
Well, and we've been working with Principal Thompson to make sure that we have the pickup and drop-off zones in particular open. We worked with the contractor to make sure that the second driveway that currently exists, which had been closed for the summer, was opened in time. But yeah, we work with the principals to ensure that, because they know more about the patterns. Just like you mentioned, being able, Graham does have a front and a back, and parents make use of both of those.
And I noticed the drywall is starting to go up, or a lot of the drywall in the auditorium.
They have just begun drywall. They finished interior framing. So what they're doing is they'll put one side of drywall while the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors install the utilities that go inside the wall.
Interesting. Trustee Coladonado.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Trustee Nelson.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. The first one is, I don't know if you can, it sounds like you can probably answer it, Mr. Lee, I would have asked before. But on the Crittenden second story on the science wing, what has been finished about the acoustical issues of those floors?
Part of the justification, the rationale behind converting those large second floor classrooms into smaller resource and counseling spaces was to reduce the number of students who have to go up to the second floor. And so normally those classrooms might house 30 to 35 students, and they change every hour. Now those classrooms are only hosting about 8 to 12 students.
So we're not using them as regular classrooms.
No, there's only one regular classroom up there at this time, and it's the classroom that's closest to the stairwell to be able to cut down
Does
on
that have
noise.
carpeting, or what did you finally do?
It has 2 layers of carpeting, yes.
Because that was a big issue, that for a decade, those rooms were essentially not used for classroom spaces. So The other question is, you mentioned that there was an academic goals document for the innovation centers. I've never seen that. Can that be sent to the trustees?
An academic goal document.
Oh,
During the
okay.
design process,
That-
we
that's
work with
fine.
the schools to convey what they need from the facility.
Okay, but is there an architect's document that says, or there really isn't?
Unfortunately, I wasn't here at the time that the architect was engaged.
Okay.
Um,
I was looking forward to actually seeing some, oh, here's how this center is going to be.
Sure, here's the criteria for a particular building.
Because you did mention is that we're trying to make sure that we're trained or whatever to meet the academic goals that this building was designed to, and that's.
So let me go back through the records and let me talk to the people who were here in the early process and see if there actually is a written record
Or,
of
I
that.
mean, if there isn't, I mean, it's your boss, but I would like to see, maybe it can be cut and pasted from the people at the middle schools who are going to be doing the academics stuff related to these buildings. That's my only question.
Thank you. Dr. Rudolph, do you want to say anything before we move on to the next item? All right, well, thank you, Ms. Duggan. So now we'll move on to item C, Stevenson/Toyerkoff/preschool/district office, construction and modernization projects, schematic design.
Hi, how are you guys? Richard Toronis, Dryling Toronis Architecture. Good to see you. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a good summer. Mine was busy. Wanted to take you through where we're at with the development on the project for Stevenson and Therakoff Preschool District Office. So I'm just going to dig right in, assuming I can figure this out. Okay. Does this have a pointer or no? No pointer. Okay. Real quick on our process. If you recall back in June, we were directed by the board to proceed with what we were calling option E. That included of course, the new Stevenson campus, the modernization of Therakoff, the relocation of the preschool to this site from Slater, and facilities. We worked with district staff and with Greystone to develop the plan for option E, including external inputs from the community. And what we're bringing before you tonight is what we're calling option G. So rest assured, there is no option F. We don't want to ever pursue an option F when we're working in schools. So we're not hiding anything from you. We've just evolved option E to what we're calling option G, just for designation purposes so that we can go through what the differences are and you can see the development of the details. We presented the option G to the Stevenson community at a meeting on August 1st, had good attendance, got good input. And so what we're bringing before you is a plan that incorporates that input. And with ultimate approval, I think we're going for September 1st at your next meeting. So tonight is for discussion, for input, feedback, etc. If we get approval on this at your next meeting, then we will begin developing more schematically and design development, construction documents, etc., working closely with the schools as we move forward. So real quick, just want to take you back. So this is where we were with option G in June. And if you recall, it was a sort of what we would call a panhandle scheme that extended along Montecito towards the playfield area with the requisite parking and drop-off area, again, along Montecito, ingress and egress out of that building, classroom buildings, MUR, library organized in sort of a courtyard fashion around the play area. And then off to the left was what we sort of in sketch fashion or conceptual fashion called district office buildings or spaces, that's in the gray, and future preschool. So keep that plan in mind, because then moving forward, emerging issues as we began developing over the summer and working with the community, we began to develop some concerns, if you will, about option E. The relocation of the Slater preschool is a reality. Slater is reopening, yay. But it also means that the relocation of the Slater preschool to this site is a hard reality that we had to begin design in earnest. And we began to discuss potential traffic impacts along Montecito with the new identity along Montecito, the parking lot and the drop-off area, the two driveways along Montecito. We're going to have some impacts, not impossible, but potential impacts along Montecito. And that potentially, as we began our discussions and talking preliminary discussions with consultants, could extend to a longer CEQA process in terms of traffic studies and the potential impacts. And any protracted CEQA process is never impossible again, but could lead to potential project delays and schedule impacts. We also took to heart some of the neighbor concerns that we heard from the folks along Montecito, because we would be building, like I showed in that panhandle fashion, a new frontage, a new identity along Montecito for the new Stevenson School. So we developed the option G that you're going to see, or that you have seen in your board packet. It was presented to the Stevenson staff and community, like I said, on August 1st. We had some concerns that were raised at that meeting for what we were showing in the central quad area, the sort of loud, noisy features, the play structure in the basketball court, and some concerns about the impacts for that panhandle that extended into the playfield areas. We also got some input on some walking paths from Montecito that you hopefully have seen on the option G plan that I'll point out to you. So we incorporated that feedback, and that's the plan that we brought before you tonight. So that includes, now bear with me because we've now moved from working over the top of an aerial photograph from that company Google, you may have heard of it. We've moved from working over the top of a simple aerial photograph to now a more accurate and detailed topographic survey that we have from the consultant. And so we can get, as the projects proceed, they get increasingly more accurate and defined. So several things that we're now, as we work over the top of that survey, one of the important ones that you're seeing there right in the middle of the play fields is we've been able to identify the layout of the full-size soccer field that the city lays out on that field. And we heard from several folks as we were developing the plan from options A through E, make sure you identify what that soccer field is, because that's a community resource. It's a community, it's district property, but it's a community resource, it's a community field, et cetera. So we laid that field on here. And if you, in your mind's eye, go back to option E, recall that panhandle that extends along there really impacts that soccer field. It extends right into the end of that and cuts off a good 15 to 20 yards of the end of that soccer field. So what we've developed here as this option G, if you think about it conceptually, if I had a pointer, but I could show you, but think about it conceptually, we've still essentially have what I would consider a panhandle scheme along the frontage of San Pierre with the MUR admin and the kindergarten wing along there. The other buildings still organized around a courtyard to capture the essence of what we as a team and what the community liked about option E. In the current location of where Stevenson is now. In order to do that, what we're doing is we're taking the existing portable buildings that are part of Stevenson currently, and we're relocating them off to the side where you're seeing the light blue buildings that we called preschool, the PS1, PS2, et cetera, and the preschool admin, relocating those so that those can serve in whole as temporary housing for Stevenson. So we could relocate all of Stevenson over to those portables, relocated, then be able to build Stevenson all at once. Once Stevenson is built, we could then move them into their new home. The district office could then swing into the portable buildings on a temporary basis, and we could build the district office in what frankly is the leftover space off to the side there in the corner in the big square rectangle that we're calling new DO building. So the other details, like I said, that we got from the community on this plan included looking closely at what we were showing in the courtyard area. And one piece of good input that we got was, what if we took the play structure that we're showing in sort of that purple and orange square, which is about to scale of what a typical play structure would look like, took that out of the courtyard area as sort of a noisy thing, took the basketball court out of the courtyard area as sort of a noisy thing. And instead, in favor, moved what we were showing before, the garden learning area, a little bit more passive in the center courtyard area. So that the courtyard is not just play space, it's also teaching space, outdoor learning, et cetera. The other detail that you're seeing on this plan, it kind of behind the preschool light blue portables that are in horizontal, you're seeing a pathway from Montecito, a pedestrian pathway coming from Montecito to still get to the school from Montecito for staff that may have to park, that may be on Montecito to be able to access the school. So before I go too far into the benefits, I want to show you the benefits. So what we believe about this option G is that Stevenson now has its identity on San Pierre. All of that parking along San Pierre would be Stevenson's parking and drop off. The parking for preschool, because preschool is not a drop off situation. Preschool is a drive in, park, and walk your preschool student into the preschool, check them in, etc. That parking there that you're seeing off of the existing driveway along Montecito would be a parking area for the district office, for the preschool to come and drop off for that, and for parking for them, as well as the play area that you're seeing for the preschool. So again, one of the benefits is Stevenson has its own identity, not shared with the district office out here on San Pierre. We've relocated the play courts to the outside the central quad area. The Slater preschool has a new home. We've avoided the potential impacts on Montecito and a potentially, again, protracted CEQA process through that traffic analysis. We've reduced the impact on the neighbors along Montecito because Stevenson is essentially has its identity along San Pierre. We've minimized the impacts on the playfield because that panhandle that was extending into the playfield is now brought up. Our edges that we're now identifying for this plan are fairly close to what the current edges are for Stevenson now. In other words, the areas that you're seeing for those preschool portables and the admin, just up in that area, that's about where the existing play structure for Stevenson is now. So again, we're trying to minimize any impacts on the community play fields below Stevenson. We can take advantage of the existing utilities that are in the current Stevenson location, always a cost issue. Todd is a constant watchdog for that kind of thing. And with this option G, we have, oops, sorry, don't look at that yet. With this option G, we can shorten our construction sequence. Again, because we're able to, in whole or in mass, relocate the current portables, relocate Stevenson all at once, build the new Stevenson, as opposed to a more phased sequence that we were going to have to look at under option E. We can shorten the construction sequence for this build out. And so lastly, we gave you a little 3D image just to start looking at the massing of how the buildings would stack up with typical modular construction that we're looking at for the classroom buildings and the admin wing, the new MUR that you see in the blue color, the preschool in the L-shaped fashion along the back there, and again, the gray building of the DO tucked in the corner there in the leftover space. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd to give you the numbers news on costs.
So currently, we're looking at an overall budget of just about $40.5 million. And I got a question earlier in the week from Dr. Clark about how that breaks down farther from where it's at in between Stevenson, the preschool, and the district office. And so when I started to break it down, it gets a little complicated because it's such a dense site and a lot of the utilities and the paving and the fire lines are all shared by the various things. But I'll give you some numbers that you can use for a rough breakdown. Stevenson, as you see there, is 12.9 million. Therakoff at 13.2 is what I had rounded to for there. The preschool is about $2 million. The district office, which is currently just a square footage allowance at this point, at 6.3 million. And then we've got an overall site development cost. So this is all the parking, the sewer, the water, the storm drain, the electrical upgrades, and everything in site of $6.1 million. Again, that's difficult to break down between the various buildings because they share a lot of it. So that's kind of where we are on cost based on the latest estimates. The numbers for the modular buildings are pretty tight. The utilities are schematic numbers, but we feel pretty good about where we're at.
Okay, and then lastly, just some notes on again, where we're at with your approval, presumed approval on September 1st. Then that'll allow us to move forward with the schematic design development. In terms of the phasing of the project, roughly what we're looking at is installing, of course, the temporary housing, meaning relocating the portables first, then building the new Stevenson campus, then building the DO, and then lastly, converting those portables into the new home for the Slater preschool. Questions, discussion, comments,
All right.
criticism?
Any members of the public wishing to address the board on this item? Okay, I'm going to go to board oh, do we have, okay. And now you know where the cards are. There you go. Turn it into, yes, and to turn it into Ms. Loga. C.
9C.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm here as a Stevenson.
Reintroduce yourself.
Yes, I'm here as a Stevenson parent, Cherie Volkoviak, and also as a member of Safe Mountain View, who I mentioned before. And we're really concerned with access for students who are coming by bike and walking. And as a parent who bikes everywhere and often walks and bikes to school, I just want to make sure that the design includes if I could, I would ask for protected bike lanes. That's something the city would do, and there's really not room on the streets for them to do that. So if there's space, I would highly suggest maybe a path on just the perimeter of the whole area, so that people from this side can get to Stevenson, people from that side can get to Thauerkopf, like in the back there, or around the edges on the outsides. Maybe like a trail or something that leads all the way to the bike parking. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll note that our architect was taking notes when he was hearing this community member. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to open it up to board members. So questions or comments by the board. Let's start with 2 minutes, please. Trustee Lambert.
Yes, a question for Dr. Clark. I recognize that what Todd Lee said, it's hard to break things down, but I got the sense that this really isn't much of a deviation from the budget proposal you presented back in June for all of these structures.
Correct. It's just over about $1 million more than what it was in June.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Trustee Gutierrez, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Trustee Coladonado.
So did we have an extra $1 million in the budget? At the time, I didn't remember there being extra million. So
At the next board meeting, we'll bring in the budget allocation sheet back.
Okay, excellent. Thanks.
Trustee Nelson.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Has there been any meetings with the preschool community?
We have not had meetings with them yet. I don't know if there have been internal discussions. So, I'm sorry, Marianne. Sorry.
So we have had meetings with Ms. Terry Wallace, the director of the preschool program, to discuss the overall programmatic needs, both in terms of capacity and the facility needs for the building. Preschools have specialized licensing requirements.
And I guess, what about the autism? Is this the preschool and the autism program? Because those are
I'll speak to
two
that.
separate.
So we have had conversations with Director Geisels for the special ed preschool at Slater, and also the director there, Ariana. So Mayes, so we've had those conversations, and yes, this preschool is the Slater preschool coming here, and also some additional rooms for the traditional preschool as we expand the traditional preschool in the district. This
Okay.
preschool on this school site will serve both populations.
Okay, because the one over at Slater, one of them is run, I thought, through the county.
The county has 2 classrooms.
Yeah.
That's their program. We have 1 traditional preschool on the Slater campus, and we also have the rest is the Slater special ed preschool.
Okay, so all of those are coming over?
I'm not going to speak for the county at this time. The county we have an agreement with the county about space we have to provide. That will be determined at some point. They don't necessarily have to be on a preschool campus.
Yeah, no, it seems like they're pretty independent where they are, but you're planning to move them out or what?
With the opening of Slater, they have to move.
Okay, so where would they move?
They get to decide.
That's what once we open up we redrew boundaries, we determine what a school size enrollment is, we look at available space, we allocate all of our programs, all the district programs first. Then after that, we'll see what space is available. It could be space here, could be space someplace else. That has yet to be determined, and we have a little while before we get there.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't think that used our boundary system for the preschool.
Well, they're there because that's currently where we have extra space.
Okay, but it doesn't have anything to do with school boundaries that we're drawing for K through 5.
No, it's an outside county program.
Right, okay,
Right.
good. One of the things I've seen work really well, what really works good at Bub is that diagonal parking in the front. And of course, we have the ability to, because it's bond money spending, to take over how the street is conditioned there as part of the state educational code. And there's a very interesting thing, the bike person, I don't know if she's still here. Have you seen the diagonal backwards in parking with the bike lane in front of it that they're doing over at Stanford where the dish is? It's not a protected bike lane, but you might be able to put a protected bike lane in back of it. And then you have back in parking, which if there's adults or something, I mean, there's some very interesting higher capacity because then you don't have to do the access lanes on your property. The access lane, of course, for regular diagonal parking is the street. And the interesting thing about the Stanford back in thing is you have a perfectly good view sitting in your car of anybody who might be whizzing down the street. Because you're facing that way when you're, so it's another way of doing parking that has worked really well in front of Bob. What's the difference between, this looks like it's option A, only $6 or $7 million more. Option A was an option that came up in June. It was approved by letters from both communities, of both Darakoff and Stevenson.
So conceptually, option A had the district office moving into the existing portables that were currently at Stevenson. If you look again at this plan, Richard, can you go back a little bit?
Oh, I thought are you sure? Because I thought
yes.
option E was doing that.
Oh.
And option A was just leaving the district office where it was.
We still
And
want-
option E was moving the district office into Stevenson. Option A, I'm pretty sure if you can go, well, I don't know if you can access our minutes from June because there is a drawing for option
So
A
this,
and E.
again, this option takes into account the fact that Slater's going to open, the preschool has to move. It took into account where, after the board said to go with option E, what potential delays would be there. It also looked at the gas and utility lines and the extra costs that would be there to spread them out. And so once you take into all those factors as well as community concerns, this was the best option that was presented.
So you didn't look at changing option A since you were moving it back to the same place where option A was before?
Correct. Option A did not have a detailed layout of the preschool.
Right.
And so
Did it have any preschool?
I think it had a dashed outline for future preschool. So the preschool at that time wasn't the same reality that it is now with Slater reopening. And correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but that the cost for option A did not include the build out of the preschool. It did not include this building for the district office.
And it also had the
portables.
Yeah. And I think one of the
I'd love to
concerns,
save
Todd,
$5 million.
Todd, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the bigger options was that the MUR for option A was also buried deep in the campus, which was brought up as a community concern, that it should be in the front of the campus like every other school.
But you take a building and you just move it to a different place, it doesn't make the building more expensive. Unless you have to add a bunch of, unless you move it out in the boondocks, and you have to provide utilities. to it,
There were
right?
some utility costs associated with where we were showing it before about in the area of the existing basketball courts, just below the tennis courts. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but there was some utility impacts.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So the preschool is 2 million and the district office is 6.3 million. So that's a total of 8 million. It's interesting because when Chris Chang was on this board and we were running, it was like, we both agreed, of course, he is no longer voting, that the district office would be the last facility that would be built in the bond program. And the way you make administrators keep their nose to the grindstone is they don't get new digs until all the kids are taken care of. But that was just the two of our kibitzing together.
Well, technically, it is the last building being built because Stevenson will be completed and then the district office will be completed.
Good. I hope you don't run out of money. That helps you not run out of money.
Isn't Slater even after that though?
If you remember, part of the reason why we're doing this is that the board said in concept, and we'll be bringing that back also, that you are willing to go for a certificate of participation to open Slater. So this is in reaction to the opening of Slater and the moving of the timeline to make sure that Slater is open by 2020, which is got a unanimous vote from the board at the last board meeting.
For what?
The opening of Slater and the approval of the timeline to get this done. This is it.
Right, I don't think I voted for E though.
It's a
It isn't-
decision of the board.
It was separate, it wasn't.
A
unanimous.
majority
It
of
was
the board-
majority decision of the board.
It was a 5-0, but the majority of the board actually voted to move forward with the process. Yes.
Right. But that was, the timeline was in the finance, never mind.
So I have a question.
It's all recorded, never mind.
Regarding the district office and, it's just kind of this blank rectangle up there right now. Are we going to be reusing some of the current modulars to repurpose a building, or is that going to be a new building?
What this plan, that would be a new building. What this plan shows is reusing those modulars and relocating them and then repurposing those, refurbishing them, adding toilet facilities for the preschool.
Okay, and so we don't know yet what the district office is going to look like.
No, we've started sketching on that, but we need to engage staff in more detail to develop that plan.
Yeah,
Our main focus, in all honesty, trustee, our main focus seriously was on Stevenson and the preschool and finding the good homes for those. And the district office will come later in the design process.
Thank you. Trustee Nelson, did you have an additional comment?
No, I confused the terminology because there was this issue we keep on messing up when we're talking about the preschool is going to be the portable buildings. Is this construction, because I'm quite surprised at how low it came, are you guys doing the modularized permanent construction? Because I want to make that very clear. So it's the modularized permanent construction.
Everything
For everything except for those.
Yeah.
The portables that are supposedly the
Correct.
best shape we have in the district.
Correct.
Will be moved
This
over.
this takes the best portables that we have, and this uses modulars on everything on
Yeah.
this to this side, with the exception of the MUR, which
Right.
would be stick built.
Right, okay. Are the,
And the library is this existing.
oh, I stick bill also. Are the portables that we have over at Stevenson in good shape or not? Are there
They are some of the best that you have in the district, yeah.
Oh, so who knows, right?
Well, no, I would say based on the construction date, you've got kind of a couple groups of portables. You've got some really old stuff that's
Yeah.
ready to be torn down. You've got some, more recent to the early 2000s that are in decent shape. And the ones here, I think, are 2009 to 2012. So they're they're fairly recent and still have a lot of good use left in them.
Okay, but I understand the reason why you want this one finished, because you don't want to disrupt them. It's like, here it is, it's all ready, it's going, and we don't move it until everything's spick and span and ready to go in.
It's a matter of economics. You know, the less moves, the less budget.
Okay, are there any additional questions or comments, or shall we move on? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we will move on to item 10, review and action. And I made a note to myself that we'll do consent at the end of this, Trustee Nelson.
Sure.
So item A, resolution number, what does it say, 1609.8/16, resolution of a conveyance of a public utility easement to the city of Mountain View for installation of water pipeline at Crittenden Middle School.
Correct. This is just the last step in this lengthy process. In the rationale and the background written on the cover page, and also what happened on June 16th, the board approved the resolution of the intention to dedicate and convey a public easement to the city. This is for the water pipeline that's going to connect Rock and Middlefield that will run through the eastern parking lot on Crittenden. So we're back tonight for the final action by the board to adopt the resolution.
Thank you. And I'll mention that because of the specific nature of this kind of item, we're actually supposed to have a public hearing on this. So what I would like to do is consider this the public hearing and ask any member of the public if you have a question or a comment. You want to specifically close?
We need
Okay,
to
so
go
I'm
through
going to
that regularly.
close the regular board meeting at 8:35 and open the public hearing at 8:35 and 10 seconds and ask if any members of the public wish to address the board on this item.
I should do it during our board
So
comment
seeing
time.
none, I will close the public hearing at 8:35 in about 40 seconds and reopen the regular board meeting at 8:35 and 45 seconds. All right.
Someday, could someone explain to me why that is legally required?
Because it's a big
What
thing.
is the point of hitting the gavel 4 times?
And it needed to be put in the paper.
Oh, well, that's
Okay,
different.
so we've offered the public an opportunity to address the board on this item. And now we're going to open this up to trustee comments and eventually in motion. So any trustee comments about this? Trustee Nelson?
I have a question. Unfortunately, Mr. Lee's left. Right across the Crittenden field, essentially, if you go through baseline and keep on running until you hit the creek, there is still operating PG&E high-pressure gas transport line. What kind of safety measures or mitigation or things are we going to do when the city starts digging around that gas line or under it or what?
What would you suggest?
I don't know.
We will make sure the city is aware of the gas line.
Okay, because I don't want to have a San Bruno in the Crittenden field. So
I move that the board ratified resolution 1609.8/16, resolution of conveyance of a public utility easement to the city of Mountain View for installation of water pipeline at Crittenden Middle School.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by trustee Lambert, seconded by trustee Gutierrez. I've got the actual language here, that the board approved resolution number 1609.8/16, conveyance of a public utility easement to the city of Mountain View. Necessary, this is weird, necessary legal process under Education Code, section 17556 et sequitur, to dedicate and convey the public utility easement deed and agreement attached here to, subject to minor modifications by the district's attorney. Any further discussion All
I'm
in
glad a
favor?
lawyer read that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Now we will move on to,
A point of personal privilege. Can
yes?
we have a restroom break?
yeah, that's a good idea. Since we are ahead in time, we're going to take a 2-minute,
5 minutes.
5-minute,
Well,
okay,
there may be-
5-minute break at 8:37. Not 9:37.
I'm gonna.
All right. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Mountain View Westman School District Board of Trustees back to order at 8:42. And we'll move on to item B, ratification of Mountain View Westman Educators Association, MBA, tentative agreement, bargaining agreement.
Good
Ms.
evening.
Robinson.
Good evening. We are really pleased that Ms. Zapata came and announced such a wonderful vote. And we hope that you also vote to approve the tentative agreement between the Educators Association and the district. So I'm here to ask you to do that.
Thank you. Any members of the public wishing to address the board on this item? Any trustees wishing to address the board before we go to a motion?
Yeah, I would.
Trustee Nelson?
Particularly since we have a representative of our esteemed local paper here, who I think there was a lot of newspaper stuff that would like, we were so far away and this and that kind of stuff that I don't think it gave credit to our bargaining team, who was really trying to do something that made sense, and to this board that was trying to make sure it kept its fiduciary responsibility over the next 5 years to how much we can afford to do salaries. And so I hope the community sees that once the board asks that the assessed valuation increases, more match what the county had suggested was going to happen, and more match what the city of Mountain View suggested was going to happen, that as soon as our chief financial officer came and showed us that now the numbers are opening up, that this board was willing to give more what the teachers had been asking for before that was clear. So I think, I hope our reporter is going to make it clear maybe how they misjudged what was going on, and give credit to both sides, the teachers for hanging in there for what they thought was fair, and this organization, the chief financial officer, our superintendent, and the members of this board for looking forward for the financial interest of this community for the next 5 years. I don't think we're going to get a 12% raise next year, but who knows?
Any other questions or comments by the board? Trustee Colorado.
I noticed one of the clauses that we published was the class size migrating, we're progressing towards 24:1 for K-3. Do we have a rule for any of the 4 through 8 grades? What is our class size? Are we bound contractually to any number for those grades?
The 4th through 8th grade is the class size of 30. If it reaches 33, the teachers are paid overloads, and it's in the contract that way. And but it's not a state mandate, as the K through 3 is.
K through six,
For the
state.
K through 3 class size reduction money,
Okay, so 30 is our average target
always.
for 4 through, all of 4 through 8.
Mhm.
And then 33, more than 33, they get paid more,
Oh, yeah.
right? Maybe that's why my kid's class has 33. All 4 of them have a bunch of 33s. So we stand to that one for sure to save some money. The evaluation task force that's mentioned, is there a schedule for when it's expected to produce a report or recommendation?
At the end of the year, we are going to give to the bargaining teams our recommendation to hopefully help the negotiating teams take that recommendation and negotiate an agreement. But
Okay.
it's a team effort.
So before the 2017-18
For the next
contract is,
negotiations.
set up, we are going to inform that. with the
That is our
task
goal.
force.
That is our mandate in the tentative agreement.
All right, great. Thanks.
So when you say year, you mean school year? Yeah. Okay.
I move that the board approve the tentative agreement between the Mountain View Wisman School District and the Mountain View Educators Association, parens CTA/NEA, in parens, including the 2016-2017 certificated salary schedule, and approve the AB 1200 public disclosure.
I second the motion.
I had one more comment.
Yeah,
please.
and I have a question also. So it's been moved by trustee Gutierrez, seconded by trustee Lambert. This is difficult to read. The board will move to approve the tentative agreement of the Mountain View Wisman Educators, yes, Association, as well as approval of the 2016-17 certificated salary schedule, and approve the AB 1200 public disclosure. So my question is, I don't understand that AB 1200 public disclosure portion of this.
That goes to the county to certify that we actually can pay for it.
I see.
You have to sign that too, don't you? Or both of you.
Okay, thank you.
It's like Sabrina Oxley.
So other other questions by the board? Trustee Nelson?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't bring this little tidbit of a excerpt that I got from the Santa Clara County School Boards Association president, who sent something out talking about where California is. It's like 49th in classroom size. So that 33 that's average across the whole state of California. But that 33 relative to Maine or anywhere else is considered high. So, but there is some research that shows it's much more important for the K-3s to be small or economically disadvantaged. And in the past, our teachers union has said that's really where they're worried that we have small class sizes. So 33 it is going to be for the other ones, I think, for a while.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, team.
A brief follow-up.
Yeah.
Ms. Robinson, has there ever been an approval rate of 99% on a contract before? It's not typical, correct? So if we want 99%, we just got to figure out how to give 8% raise each time.
Ha, ha, ha. Yes.
You can do compounding, right?
Okay, so now we're going to go back to consent because this is an action item. So trustee Nelson, you wanted to pull items C, F, and O. You said you had a comment about item O. Will you make your comment first and then tell us about C and F?
Yeah, I think generally, I think the thing for what the position of the district translator, the job description is fine. I do want to make a comment to the administration that in the past, this administration has shown that it has a 12% higher, meaning 7% rather than 6% amount that it costs to run administration compared to the average in the state of California. And our district, the district quality report said we siloed a lot of our jobs in our district office. And I definitely hope that we can start to hire people and pay them a little more if they have certificates of biliteracy, which guess what? Our high schools in the state of California give if you're biliterate. If we hired people who had that certificate of biliteracy and a working knowledge, we'd have a lot of more translators on our staff. And we'd be encouraging people to become more biliterate in our community. So I worry about that siloing.
Just real quick, the certificate that you're talking about is actually for the teachers. This is
No, it's a certificate. I mean, it's a stamp of biliteracy that two of my sons have gotten, one in Spanish, one in French, for attaining essentially high enough on the AP or fourth year of a language in high school. So it's for students coming out of high school, goes on their graduation, gets a little sticker.
So
I'll show it to you.
could I clarify the translator position? We have many interpreters and translators who are paid hourly in our district. We have many
Yeah.
people who provide those services. This is one person who's dedicated daily 8 hours a day to making sure that our communication is sent out in Spanish and English in a timely manner.
I understand that. In fact, it is mentioned specifically here in the district quality report on page 16, item 3, and it says the quality of translation from the district office serves as another barrier to parents' ability to understand the excuse me, education of their students. I understand the need. I'm just saying this district has not had a commitment to giving foreign language instruction. And I think this district has not shown a commitment to hiring people who are biliterate. But that's just a comment. That's why it's just a comment. Yeah. Contracts, the 9th item. The issue about the contracts for the program up at the science school.
Walden West.
Walden West, yeah. We have one contract that has the item of Castro and Mistral sending their kids together. This is one of the questions. The president made a comment about we ask questions and get responses back. And I think that's a great example of trying to integrate our kids and integrate our programs and integrate our communities. But I think there's a problem with one of the other contracts. And Gloria Higgins, when she was a 2004 trustee and a candidate for office, was quoted in our Voice, and our reporters left. "We do not need to treat race and poverty like the elephant in the room anymore," she said. Quote, "Each school should look like the entire district so we don't have segregated schools." You could argue whether that last one needs to be rigorously enforced or not. I think we as a board should provide leadership on this issue, and the Castro Mistral Joint Science Camp visit shows a real effort at integration, in this case between wealthy and not as wealthy. While the separate Stevenson-Therakoff trips show inattention to the segregation issue. Segregation by advantage and disadvantage, by wealthy and poor, continues to be a problem increased by packed choice operation. Still the elephant in this room that this institution refuses to see and address. Candidate Higgins, I think, was dead wrong in 2004. The elephant's still here. I wish in the future the district office would put the screws on those two communities that go together and have a joint science camp, because there's a lot of hostility between some of the parents and some of the outside community on that issue. I noticed that Stevenson is going to camp at the same camp with Bub, but I urge in the future, you think the hostilities that have come up, that, if they're in the same camp, they're going to be talking with kids that are in the school right across from them. So unless you can tell me why it's great to keep up this segregation, I wish we would, as a board, say we want to move to as much integration of these two school communities as we can on other areas than their campus facilities.
So that's item C.
Yes.
I would see F.
Okay, so I would like to
wanna
ask for,
vote on those
I'm
two
going to,
things?
excuse me, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve item C.
I move to approve item C.
Second.
And O.
Well, but I don't think you've talked about O yet.
No, but we removed it. He
Oh,
did. He
oh,
made his comment.
Sounds good. Okay. So
And-
second, please.
Oh, all right. So is that all right with
In
you?
item O,
O?
yes.
Okay, it's been moved by trustee Lambert, seconded by trustee Gutierrez, that the board approve consent item C and O. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, trustee Nelson, item F.
Yeah, I got an answer to my question about, we had an audit report that said there was some issues about how we handle our finance signing and training for finance stuff. Since I'm supposed to be fiduciarily responsible for how this organization does its books, I'm glad we now have 2 signatures on those, but I haven't seen any written audit by people who do audits of what our process flow is for those designated financial problems. I'm sure our CFO has been working on them. There may even be a different procedure now, but there's this thing called trust but verify. And since there have been districts around here that have had people end up in prison, I expect there to be a procedural audit that I can see the results of.
Yep.
And if it's a $5,000 or $10,000 procedural audit by an accounting firm that can do that kind of audit, I would like to see that. Otherwise, I'm going to vote no on this issue.
Trustee,
that
I mean,
motion.
Superintendent Rudolph, do you want
You-
to make? a
You'll see
comment
that
on
Dr. Clark and his team have actually addressed the issue here. If you notice on the one of many forms that we passed out, it actually, the requesting administrator fills out the form, then it's actually signed by one of the verified individuals. And then it comes to the superintendent or the designee if I'm gone for final signature. And so that is more than probably any other organization has to verify and approve any purchase and requisition. And this definitely exceeds probably the standard within multiple districts throughout this state to assure that we don't have that issue. The issue has been addressed.
My point is it hasn't been audited that we're actually, you can have paper up the wazoo and people still get crushed by elevators when Levi Stadium's being built because they didn't go through the procedure and use the lockout, tagout, OSHA required procedure for energized things that can crush people. So I understand that. I don't see an audit. I don't see a paper trail showing that those problems have been done. So thank you. It's a form.
I'd like to address that because you do see an audit. You've seen an audit every year.
I see a funds audit. That's
You see
not,
a financial audit, and inside that audit, the auditor will tell you if we are following processes, and they do their tests to make sure that we're following GAAP standard accounting practices.
for
So-
funds balances, because there is always a disclaimer in there. We are not auditing your process.
I would question that for the simple fact that when they were here doing the interim audit, when we had the exit interview, they went through and showed us all the tests that they did when they pulled a certain number. There was a 25 item sample for their purchase orders.
Right.
There was a 15 item sample for ASB transactions in the district. So I'm not sure what the disconnect is, but the district gets audited every year
I
for our
understand that.
financial practices.
It's been audited the last 5 years. So how did these practices that Cambridge Education said are sloppy, how were they happening? If we have been audited every year for 5 years, sir, it makes no sense to me. I'm not that stupid.
I don't
I'm
think-
not an auditor.
I don't think Dr. Clark and I are here to talk,
Right.
to address how it was done. What we're both saying is that we have addressed the issue.
Right.
And
And I'm
we-
saying I don't see an audit record of
We
that.
far exceed any standard that any district in this state has.
I would
through our
like to see an
processes.
audit. I'm not asking for your word, Dr. Rudolph.
but
I'm
we-
asking for an auditor's word.
What Dr. Clark just said is we just completed an audit, and I'm showing you the form because this question comes up often, to prove to you again that we far exceed what actually is being required by the state.
When
in
was the
terms-
audit done?
They're done annually. In this district, we brought ours in the spring, but we've advanced the 15-16 audit to and changed audit firms. And that audit we anticipate coming to the board at the December board meeting.
So I'm going to ask for a motion for item F.
I can talk to
I
you
move
guys
that the
offline
board
on this,
approve
okay?
item F,
you.
resolution number
Hold on a second.
1612.8/16.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by trustee Lambert, seconded by trustee Gutierrez. The board, I'm just going to shorten it, that the board approve item F under the consent calendar. Trustee Coladonado, you had a comment?
Yes, so the back and forth I observed, it did make me wonder. Is it true that Cambridge pointed out a flaw in, or rather a deficiency in our financial controls prior to that you guys didn't create, but you fixed? Is that the case? It was asserted by trustee Nelson. I want to know if you agree.
They didn't do a financial audit, right? So in their conversations with staff, it was brought up as this is being an issue, and yes, we have addressed the issue.
There's an issue. The fact that that issue existed, but wasn't mentioned in prior financial audits, which also checked things like that, mean that the prior financial audits were maybe not as tight as what Cambridge looked at, or didn't catch what Cambridge thought. Am I right in that the other audits didn't say this is a problem and we ignored it, and then Cambridge repeated it? Cambridge said something that was new to us.
I think the difference would be that the financial audits assess whether or not you're following the procedure that's identified. Right. And so those 5 years, the process, it met the standard. However, in conversations with staff, so this is the Cambridge audit, conversations with staff, they brought up a concern about there needs to be different types of financial controls. And then Dr. Clark, who also was interviewed, said there needed to be different financial controls. And so one of the things that I charged Dr. Clark with was to establish different financial controls, which we've brought up a couple of times. And in the course of that, the board asked us to create a 2-signature process to address this issue, which far exceeds what any district would have had. And so Dr. Clark came back and said, here is a 2-signature process that it's not only the person requesting, but a authorized signature, and then plus the superintendent or a designee. So that's the process that we went to address this issue.
Got you. Now I understand. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to call for the motion. All in favor of approving item F under the consent action item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, the motion passes 4-1 with trustee Nelson voting no. All right, so it is 9:05. We're going to go on to board updates. Trustee Nelson.
Yeah, I actually have, I'll send this over to the board secretary. I didn't send it in by hand. I mean, I didn't email it in. I go to Dr. Rudolph. That's why I fold it so it doesn't, so it gets into the next meeting. I have 4 items on here, but the one thing I wanted to mention was item 2. So far this week, I've had 2 meetings with some of the neighbors of the Cooper School site to try to understand what the history of that school site is and what their concerns may be for how we use it in the future. And it was very interesting because that's where the speakeasy, right next to our property was the speakeasy from the 1920s. Thank you. And there is this thing if you go around for somebody who's lived there for 30, 40, or 50 years and mention Morgan School to them, you will see the hair on the back of their neck raise up and claws start to come out. So it's very vital if we want to figure out how to use that property, 10 acres or 9.5 acres, in a way that is financially useful to us and acceptable to the larger community that isn't necessarily just school kids, that we may have to think something innovative about that 10 acres or swapping it for 10 acres somewhere else, that we will have more latitude, or swapping 7 of the acres other than where the preschool is, or somewhere else that we will have less impact on a single family community that doesn't like it when the school district comes in and makes big plans. I guess there was something called, I don't know if Kathy knows, there was an expansion plan maybe 10 years for primary plus preschool that ended up having 100 people come to a school board meeting and protest it. Do you remember that, Ellen?
No.
Not in my, so who knows? It's maybe 25 years ago that it happened, but people remember those kinds of things. So I may have one more meeting with some people there, but it's like, yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. It's like people remember those things, that institutions, you'll serve them for decades and decades.
Any other update, Trustee Nelson?
I sent the.
Okay, Trustee Coladonado?
I would just like to update that I can't remember if it was at our last meeting in June. I asked, when are we going to replace that old sign on the wall with our new sign now that we have a new strategic plan? And it is replaced. So everybody go check out that cool new sign.
And we need to replace it on the front of our agenda.
Sure.
Next.
Yeah. Thank you for changing that.
So that actually was my comment here also.
Are you kidding?
Yes, I see. Like we're twins tonight. But I will notice that this is something you didn't say, that I'm glad to see that our CSBA Masters of Governance clock and items are still in the back. And I would hope that we're still going to keep those up because those are still relevant. Even though I also am appreciative of this new sign and its placement. And I'll note that I sent my summer update to Ms. Lilka.
No updates.
Trustee Gutierrez.
I actually will send mine in to Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we move on to, well, I guess this is where we should do it. Items for future agendas. If people remember, at the end of our last meeting in June, Trustee Nelson brought up an agenda item regarding the new parcel tax. And since that time, he and I have met, and I've met with Superintendent Rudolph, and we've agreed that we'll have an agenda item in the early fall where we revisit parcel tax and where we think we are now. So
That'll go down.
is that fine with you, Trustee Nelson, or did you want to?
Yeah, but I did want 2 minutes to talk about.
This is not a time to talk. This is future.
This, well, but he brought it up at the last meeting.
Yes.
And so now he gets his 2
No,
minutes.
I'm saying now
This is
that
Tony Bill.
I'm saying now that we have already agreed that we're going to have an agenda item on this.
Oh, it's moot, you're saying.
It's moot. Yes.
Oh, well, actually not exactly. Because what kind of
Where do
agenda?
these go?
The folded one that says board secretary.
For your
goes
eyes
to the
only.
super-
I
Dr.
object.
Rudolph.
It's not-
Do not look in
I
there.
object. This is moot. It's moot.
No, it's not
going to
moot.
be on the agenda.
The idea is neither
The matter
ludicrous
has not been put in the
nuts.
agenda.
Could
Thank
you
you.
please not interrupt me, sir? Thank you. Yeah, let me just read this last part to you, Bill, because you're quoted in the paper as saying that this idea was ludicrous and nuts. And it's not. I think it's significant to note that the Emory School District parcel tax of November 2014 was in the same appellate court district as the prior Baracus cases. The Emory uniform per square foot tax was not challenged by either the county council when wording went on the ballot or after passage by the litigants and law firm that pursued the Baracus suit against Alameda Unified School District. Call the superintendent's office, 510-601-4000. Talk to them. The Alameda Unified School District passed a uniform per square foot of building tax 2011 for 32 cents. That was challenged and then upheld by the appellate court that had previously decided the Baracus against Alameda. They have an extension measure headed for the ballot, 32 cents per square foot of building, June 28th, their board action.
So I'm going to stop this right here and say
The
that
Berkeley's-
it is moot because this is a future agenda item that is already agreed to by all of us. So these are points that at that time will be appropriate for you to bring them up. But right
Well, I would
now,
like
it is
to-
not.
This
I
is
would
this
like
is a
to
Brown
say-
Act violation. This is not on the agendized item. You're speaking.
Yes, it is.
Where does it say we're discussing?
It
Where is
says-
this not?
it
I'm not going to get
says-
in an argument with you. Thank you.
Good.
So Trustee Nelson, I'm going to say right now, I'm going to stop this and move on to other items. I've stated my viewpoint 3 times here. This will be an appropriate discussion item when it's agendized in the early fall.
It is on
So,
the agenda, is discussing new items for the next agenda. So your ludicrous and nuts interpretation of the law bill shows why you're an intellectual property.
I stand by
lawyer.
my words that this is a dysfunctional board.
Okay, so I am going to stop it right here, and I will read a little note that Trustee Nelson
Oh, that was just.
passed
a joke.
along. I don't think it's a joke at all. So it's
No, I
meaningful to
don't.
me. Today is the anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, all men and women are created equal. There we go. All right, so future items for suggestions for future agendas by anyone else.
I'm excited to hear the enrollment update at the next meeting. Those are always fun. It's already on the agenda.
Yes. Anybody else?
One other thing, weren't we going to get school plans earlier than late October? I thought we had talked about them being in September. I'll have to go consult my records, but I thought that, I remember being really excited thinking they'd be in August or September.
No, the fastest we can get them done, because they have to also factor in the state test scores, which are almost ready to be released. And then they also have to meet with the school site councils. Fastest we can get it done would be October. And the teachers.
State test scores have not been released yet.
No,
No. Thank you for
Close.
this thing. Again.
close. So that's the holdup. If the state test scores are released earlier, then we could move it up. But
So then I'll ask you about it later.
Okay.
Okay, so regarding future board meeting dates, I believe we have a retreat date scheduled. Is that correct? Friday, September 9th and Saturday, September 10th.
So I've actually heard from several board members that they would like to forego the retreat, considering that there will be a new board. At least there will be 3 new members or 2.
At least 2 new members
At
that
least
aren't running
2,
for reelection.
right. 2 aren't running for reelection. There are 4 candidates. So because of the new composition of the board, several board members have mentioned to me that it would make sense to just simply wait until the new board comes on to actually do a retreat.
I agree with that. Okay, so we can delete those dates from our calendars. All right. So speaking of new board members, before we get off the meeting, I'll say that Trustee Lambert has announced that he is not running for reelection. Trustee Gutierrez has announced that he is running for reelection. And that leaves, and Trustee Nelson didn't file for reelection. So
I
that,
announced that months and months ago, Ellen. That I
But
wasn't
then
gonna
you
run.
also did what you said. That's her point.
Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, my point is, there are 3 seats up in the fall on the November ballot. And there are currently 4 people who have filed to run for these seats. So one of them is Trustee Gutierrez. One of them is Laura Blakely, a community member. One of them is Peter Dara, a community member. Both of them are former parents in our school district. And another one is Tamara Wilson, who is, I believe, a current member, a current parent in our district. So we will have an election. So that's very interesting. And I think that's all I'll say at this point. So any other future board meeting dates? Is this correct as far as you know, Ms. Lolga? Okay, so I'm going to adjourn this.
May I have a minute?
Yes, go ahead.
You know, for what it's worth, trustees, I'd like to thank you for making this year an interesting one. This year, well, this time last year, we went through the appointment process. And tonight is the anniversary of when you all appointed me to be part of the team. So I want to thank you for that. And this year has been a learning one for me and for all of us. And I just hope that the future gets even better. So thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to help and serve moving forward together, the idea of helping all students out and parents and members of the community, the school district and our executive team members and staff. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for stepping up.
And I really like
Anybody
that
else?
appointment I mean, the way you ran that
The
appointment
process,
process.
yes.
and
Thank
the
you
way
very much.
Kathy
Thank you very
did it.
much.
I thought it
Hey, I'm
was
going to
excellent.
adjourn this meeting at 9:18.
Hey, we got somebody appointed, right? We didn't have to do an election.
For the contract, right?
Oh, everybody? Because we're signing away our
Oh, this is our land. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we
Minutes.
actually also have an easement for the road access. If you look